I heard her voice through the frosted glass of our apartment door. She was laughing, that bright, effortless laugh I had fallen in love with 3 years ago, standing in the rain outside the Tate Modern, sharing one umbrella and pretending neither of us minded getting wet. But this laugh was different. "He is going to propose at the Ashford Gala on Friday," she said. "Watch how I turn him down in front of everyone. He will finally understand who holds the power in this arrangement." I stood in the corridor, the handle of my leather briefcase cutting into my palm. The lift hummed behind me. The city lights of Canary Wharf glittered 42 floors below. "My name is Daniel Osei. I am a senior investment analyst at Meridian Capital. I have closed deals worth hundreds of millions. I do not rattle easily." But in that moment, standing outside my own front door, I felt the entire architecture of the last 3 years collapse underneath me. The ring was in my inside jacket pocket, a cushion-cut diamond on a platinum band. I had spent 8 months selecting it. Her father, Edward Shaw, had shaken my hand in the private dining room at the Savoy when I asked for his blessing. "You are exactly what this family needs, Daniel," he had said. I walked inside. Victoria was curled on the white sofa, FaceTime open, Priya's face filling the screen. "Oh, you are home early," she said, ending the call quickly. "I didn't hear the lift." "Traffic was light," I said. I set my briefcase down. I smiled, and I lied without moving a single muscle in my face. That night I did not sleep. I lay in the dark listening to the city and replaying her words until they were as familiar as my own heartbeat. "Watch how I turn him down in front of everyone." The Ashford Gala, 3 days away. Black tie, 50 guests, Victoria's entire social world in one gilded room. She had wanted a stage. I would give her one she would never forget. I work in risk analysis. It is, at its core, the art of reading what is hidden beneath what is visible. I should have applied those same skills to my own life far sooner. The morning after, I sat in my home office before dawn with a coffee going cold beside me and began an audit, not of a portfolio, but of a relationship. I pulled up our joint account. We had opened it 18 months earlier for the Kensington flat, rent, utilities, shared expenses. In the last 6 weeks, Victoria had made 4 withdrawals, totaling £4,200. Cash. No corresponding receipts in our shared expenses folder. I opened her LinkedIn. Professional, polished, unremarkable. Then Instagram. Then a secondary account I had never seen, under a slightly different spelling of her name. Posts from charity events and rooftop dinners. In one, she stood beside Dominic Hale, CEO of Veritas Capital, 40 years old, recently divorced, the subject of every financial column in the city. The caption read simply, "Altitude." They had been photographed together 4 times in 8 weeks. I picked up my phone and called Joel Francis. We had worked together on a cybersecurity advisory 2 years prior. He owed me a favor I had never called in. "Joel," I said, "I need you to recover deleted messages from a phone. I have physical access to it. I know this is a gray area." "For you, Daniel, consider it done." Getting access to her phone was easier than it should have been. Victoria slept deeply. Always had. I had 20 minutes. Joel had the data by morning. I read the messages in my car, parked in the underground garage beneath Meridian Capital, engine off, the city sealed away above me. Victoria to Priya 7 weeks earlier. Dominic asked me to join him in Geneva next month for the summit. It is not just business. Priya, what about Daniel? Victoria, Daniel is comfortable. Dominic is consequential. There's a difference. I scrolled further. Victoria, he's been asking about a ring. Marcus told someone who told Priya who told me. If he proposes publicly and I decline loudly, he will understand that I am not something he simply acquires, and it gives me a clean exit. Messy for him, clean for me. Priya, that is ice cold, Vic. Victoria, that is strategy, Priya. I sat with that for a long time. Then I opened my calendar and sent a message to Claire Ashford, the best property and asset lawyer I knew. I booked the earliest available appointment. Claire Ashford's office occupies the top floor of a Georgian townhouse in Mayfair, the kind of office where serious problems are solved quietly. She read the documents I placed before her without expression. When she finished, she folded her hands and said, "The flat lease is in your name only. She has no tenancy agreement. 30 days' notice, served formally, is entirely within your rights."
The joint account? Move your contributions out gradually. Do not drain it overnight. I will draft the notice to vacate. You will need it served before the gala or after, your choice, but before is cleaner. I chose after. I wanted her to walk into that room believing she had won. I wanted her to see every move I had already made only after she had made hers. Some might call that revenge. I called it documentation. The Ashford Gala was held at a private members' club in St. James's. Chandelier light, string quartet, men in black tie and women in architecture. Victoria wore midnight blue. She was, by any measure, remarkable. That was the part that hurt most, not the betrayal, but the waste of something that had once felt real. I arrived composed. I had eaten. I had slept, finally, the previous night. I was not going to give her a scene. That was not the plan. We circulated. She was warm, attentive, charming, performing for an audience that had no idea what was happening beneath the surface. Her parents were there. Edward Shaw shook my hand with the warmth of a man who believed I was about to become his son-in-law. At 10 o'clock, the room gathered loosely near the terrace. I could feel Victoria's anticipation, a slight tension in her shoulders, a barely concealed readiness. She was waiting for me to kneel. I did not kneel. I smiled at her, said I needed a moment with Edward, and walked with him to the far end of the terrace. "Edward," I said quietly, "I need you to know something. Not tonight in full, but soon. Something has happened that you deserve to understand." He looked at me steadily. "Is it Victoria?" "Yes." He nodded slowly, the way men of his generation nod when they already suspect what they are about to be told. "I will come to you this week." "Thank you." When I returned to Victoria, her smile had thinned slightly. "What were you and my father discussing?" "Work," I said. He had some questions about the markets. She studied me. I held her gaze and gave her nothing. We left at 11. The ring never left my pocket. She confronted me in the kitchen at 7 the next morning, her composure finally cracking. "What happened last night, Daniel? You were cold, you were distant, and whatever you said to my father, he called me this morning and would not tell me what you discussed." I placed the printed documents on the kitchen island between us, the messages, the photographs, the bank withdrawals, the timeline of her and Dominic Hale. She did not deny it immediately. That told me everything. "Those messages were private," she finally said. "So was our relationship," I replied, or at least I believed it was. Tears came, then anger, then bargaining. I had prepared for all three and felt none of them land. I handed her the notice to vacate, 30 days, prepared and signed by Claire Ashford. "You had a lawyer?" Her voice broke on the last word. "I had a plan," I said, "same as you." I left her in the kitchen and went to shower. When I came out, she was on the phone, to Priya from the fragments I could hear, panicking, asking what I knew. Everything, I thought. I know everything. Marcus had introduced me to Isabel Cross 3 weeks earlier at a strategy conference in the city. She was an executive consultant, precise, unguarded, the kind of person who said exactly what she meant and expected the same in return. We had spoken twice, once about work, once about nothing in particular for longer than either of us intended. The day after the gala, she messaged me, "How are you?" Genuinely. I stared at the word genuinely for a long time. When had someone last asked me that? "Rebuilding," I wrote back. "Ask me again in a month." She replied, "I will hold you to that."
Edward Shaw came to my office 4 days later. I showed him everything. He read it at my desk, slowly, without speaking, in the way of a man who had built his entire life around integrity and was now confronted with evidence that someone he loved had none. When he finished, he said, "I am sorry, Daniel. This is not the daughter I raised. Or perhaps it is, and I failed to see it. You do not need to apologize to me, sir. I know, but I want to." He stood. "Whatever you need, you have my word." He forwarded the evidence to Dominic Hale without consulting Victoria. Dominic, it turned out, had his own reputation to protect. He ended their arrangement by email. 2 lines. Victoria's exit strategy collapsed. The role she had engineered for herself, on Dominic's arm, in his world, in Geneva, evaporated. She moved out of the flat on day 27, 3 days early. Naomi helped her pack, then called me that evening. "She knows she lost something real," Naomi said quietly. "She just doesn't know how to say it without losing control of the narrative." "I hope she finds her way," I said, and I meant it, not warmly, but honestly. I kept the flat. I had it repainted, new furniture, fewer things, more space. Marcus said it looked like a gallery. I took that as a compliment. Work went well. A promotion came through, head of European risk strategy. I accepted without ceremony. Isabel and I had coffee 3 times before either of us acknowledged what it was. On the 4th, she said, "I am not interested in performing for someone. Are you?" "No," I said, "not anymore." "Good." She picked up her cup. "Then we understand each other." We did, straightforwardly, without games, without theater. It was, I realized, the first relationship I had been in where I never felt I needed to manage the optics. A year later, Marcus raised a glass at a dinner in my new home, a townhouse in Islington, light-filled, mine entirely, and said, "To Daniel, who had the presence of mind not to kneel on the wrong floor." Isabel laughed. The Shaws, Edward, Margaret, and Naomi were there too. They had remained in my life, which surprised me at first, but Edward had said something to me once that I have never forgotten. A man's character is most visible not in how he celebrates his victories, but in how he conducts himself in his betrayals. You conducted yourself well, Daniel. I thought about Victoria sometimes, not with bitterness, with something closer to perspective. She had taught me, without intending to, that love is not a transaction, that it cannot be leveraged, that the moment it becomes about control, it becomes about nothing worth having. Isabel had taught me the alternative, that real love is not a negotiation. It does not require strategy or surveillance or an exit plan. It simply requires 2 people willing to show up honestly every single day. The ring, the one I had carried to the gala and never raised, I sold it 3 months after. I used the proceeds to take Isabel to Kyoto in spring. Cherry blossoms, ryokan, no agenda. She said it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Standing in a garden in Arashiyama, petals falling slow as snow, she took my hand and said, "I think you needed all of that to become this." "I think you were right," I said. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt no weight at all. Victoria sent one message 8 months later, a short one. "I am sorry for all of it. I hope you are well." I read it twice. I did not reply, not from cruelty, but from clarity. Some chapters are not meant to be reopened, only understood. I blocked the number, set the phone face down on the desk, and went back to the book I was reading. Isabel was in the next room. The kettle was on. Outside, the city moved at its usual pace, urgent, indifferent, alive. And I was exactly where I was supposed to be.